You ever look at the news, see a report about a strong economy, low unemployment, and just think to yourself, wait a minute, that's not what it feels like out here. If you've been looking for a job lately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today, we're going to dive into that gap between the official story and what we're all actually experiencing and try to figure out why the numbers just don't seem to add up. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got the headlines, right? A solid 4.3% unemployment rate. Hey, 130,000 jobs added. Sounds great. But then there's the other side of the screen, the reality. And this probably looks a lot more familiar. Blasting out endless applications into a black hole, getting completely ghosted after what you thought was a great interview, and just that constant grinding financial pressure while you're waiting for something, anything to hit. Yeah, the disconnect it's real. So what is the deal? Are the numbers just wrong? Or is there something much deeper happening that the old school stats just can't see? Well, let's put on our detective hats. We're going to follow three major clues that start to pull back the curtain on a hidden world of work, one that those headline numbers totally miss. Okay, our first clue, it starts with the people themselves. See, there's this whole invisible workforce out there. People who are definitely part of the economy, but, they don't fit neatly into the employed or unemployed boxes that our system was built for. The term for this is ghost labor. These are the folks whose work or their desperate search for work is basically invisible to the big, flashy numbers we see on TV. And it's not just one group of people, it's made up of a few different and pretty surprising groups. So let's start with a group you might not expect at all, retirees. Get this, a shocking 7% of them have unretired and jumped back into the job market in just the last 6 months. Now, that's not a small number. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people who are now competing for jobs.
But here's where it gets really interesting, the why. Sure, a little over half say they're coming back to stay active, which is great. But look at that other slice. Nearly half, almost 1 out of every 2, are being forced back into the workforce out of pure financial necessity. Inflation, crazy medical bills, savings that just aren't cutting it anymore, it's pushing them back into the job market. And then there's another massive group of these ghost workers, the long-term unemployed. We're talking about almost 2 million people who've been pounding the pavement for over 6 months. A lot of these folks are experienced workers, in their 40s and 50s, and they just find themselves stuck in this incredibly frustrating limbo. And man, this quote you see online all the time really just says it all. It's not about being picky. People are applying for everything, even entry-level gigs they're way overqualified for, and they're being completely screened out by algorithms before a human being ever even sees their name. It's this soul-crushing pattern that leaves really skilled people feeling totally invisible. Okay, let's move on to our second clue. Because it turns out, it's not just the workers who are ghosts. A whole lot of the jobs themselves are too. This part of the mystery is all about the absolutely broken hiring process. So what in the world is a ghost job? It's a position that a company advertises with zero real plan to actually hire someone for it. And this isn't usually an accident, some post they forgot to take down. It's often a deliberate strategy to build up a bank of resumes, to make the company look like it's growing, or even just to see who's out there. And this slide, wow, this really shows you how widespread this whole thing is. I mean, just look at these numbers. In government, a staggering 60% of job postings might be ghosts. In education and health, it's half. And even in hot fields like tech and finance, you're looking at nearly half of all the job postings not actually leading to a real job. You could be spending weeks of your life applying for jobs that don't even exist. It all feeds into what you could call the ghosting machine. It starts with this insane flood of applications that just buries recruiters. Then the algorithms kick in, filtering out perfectly good candidates just because they didn't use the exact right keyword. Then you add in some good old-fashioned internal chaos, budgets change, roles get put on hold, and you top it all off with a culture where everybody just ghosts everybody else. The result for you, the job seeker? Crickets. Which brings us to our third and final clue, the massive but often totally silent shockwave of artificial intelligence. And this isn't some sci-fi future problem. AI is already changing who gets hired and who gets left behind, right now. So what's so critical to get here is just the sheer scale of this change. This is not a niche tech thing. Recent research is showing that nearly half of all jobs can now use AI for at least a quarter of their daily tasks. I mean, just let that sink in for a second.
AI isn't just a tool for coders anymore. It is rapidly becoming a basic part of almost every single workplace. But here's the catch. Its impact is not being felt equally. Not even close. AI is basically creating two completely different realities. For experienced workers, it can be like a superpower, you know? It boosts their productivity, makes them even more valuable. But for entry-level folks, AI can do a lot of their routine tasks, which creates way tougher competition for those first jobs that are so crucial for starting a career.
And this isn't just about individual careers. The United Nations is sounding the alarm that this could happen on a global scale. AI risks widening the gap between wealthy countries and developing ones, and it could actually reverse decades of economic progress. So let's bring it all together. You've got the invisible workers, the ghost jobs, the AI shockwave. Why do the numbers feel so rigged? Well, the big reveal isn't some secret conspiracy. It's actually simpler and maybe even more maddening. The system we use to measure the economy is just completely outdated.
So here it is, the heart of the problem. Our entire economic dashboard was built for a different time. We rely on these simple averages, which is kind of like taking the temperature of an entire hospital and declaring everyone's fine at 98.6. It completely hides the fact that some people are perfectly healthy and others are running a raging fever. The stats were never designed to count ghost labor or ghost jobs, and the data comes out so slowly it can't possibly keep up with something moving as fast as AI. And maybe the most frustrating part, those strong job reports you hear about, they often get quietly revised down months later, long after the positive headlines are gone. So it really makes you wonder, right? What if we stop trying to jam our 21st century economy into these old 20th century boxes? What if we actually started measuring the things that really matter to people's lives? And the good news is, researchers are already working on this. I mean, imagine a future where we track job quality, things like pay, benefits, and stability, not just the raw number of jobs. Or AI exposure dashboards that show us in real time which careers are at risk. And of course, metrics that actually count all those unretired and underemployed people. That would give us a much, much truer picture of what's going on. So here's the final thought. The economic stats aren't necessarily lying to us. They're just telling an old story. A story about a stable, predictable job market that, for millions and millions of us, simply doesn't exist anywhere. And you know what? Maybe understanding that, knowing that you're not crazy, is the very first step toward building a new one.